Hello, this is Matt Ballant again with episode 4 of my ongoing video series regarding the Valley of the Pharaohs, how to play, how to set up a character, more information about the world, and so on. In this episode, we're going to delve a little bit more into the character and party background. One of the features of the character background is what's known as the home region. Egypt at this time was divided into two kingdoms, the upper and the lower kingdom. And those are designations that had been made since very, very ancient time, literally the founding of the country back around 3000 BC. Lower Egypt was also known as the Delta region, and it was divided up into 20 provinces, or what were called sepot. Upper Egypt, which was along the Nile River and was the southern part of the country, had 22 provinces. And each province, as you might imagine, had a capital city. They had patron deities. They varied in their size and importance, because in most cases, these cities themselves were very ancient and dated to the time before each of these upper and lower kingdoms were united. They were originally what you might consider city-states, and then as time went on, they became consolidated into individual kingdoms, and then Narmer, back around 2600 BC, united both kingdoms into one kingdom. Now, the home regions themselves can give a bonus based on the cast of the character, and there's options as well, for some of them, to choose skills outside of normal occupations. And an example is given towards the bottom of the screen. This has an entry for L8, what I call L8. L stands for Lower Egypt. 8 is the 8th sepot. And I guess before we should continue, I should also mention that these were also known as nomes, Nome, which is a name the Greeks gave to these administrative districts. So if you look online, you'll often see references to the nomes of Egypt, and that's the Greek designation. But anyway, here's a typical entry from the rules. We have the name of the nome, the Egyptian, as well as a translation, what its capital was. And again, because a lot of these capitals were given separate names by the Greeks, that other name has been given as well. So if you wanted, again, to do research, you can have a variety of different terms to search on, because not all of these, if you search for the ancient Egyptian name, you won't necessarily come up with a lot of information online. Also listed is the principal god that's worshipped in that capital. And then some general notes. In this case, this is a frontier town. The area wasn't very highly populated, under 100 people per square kilometer. So not a huge amount of population at that time. Then below is a series of numbers based on the cast of the character. No, in this case, noble, clergy, bureaucracy, and common. They each have one role. And what that means is there's a table based on the character background that they can roll against, which will give either a skill increase or potential for new skills. And we'll go into that in just a few moments. Also, you'll note there's a hieroglyphic symbol for that gnome, and that would be used on signposts and buildings, and also in designations of people's names uh, to denote where they came from. Also, in this particular instance, there's what's called a special, which is, in this case, thief skills. And what that means is if your character comes from this gnome, regardless of your caste, occupation choice, you can choose from the thief skill list when you're determining your starting skills. So it gives you a way of, even if you come from the clergy, for example, and you're choosing priestly type skills, you do have the ability to choose from the thief skill list as well, by virtue of your background from where you came. Here's an example from the map that's in the game. This same CPOT L8 bet. Here I've indicated it on the map. It's in Lower Egypt. There's the capital roughly positioned on the map. So you can tell, you can use the maps provided in the game with the CPOT to tell where the characters are coming from. Also shown here is the background bonus table. It's basically a 1d10 roll. And in this case, everybody, regardless of their caste, only gets one roll on this table. So because they only get one roll, they get an automatic +1. If you were allowed multiple rolls, say 2 or 3, you would not get that bonus. And so if you rolled a 1 on your initial roll, you would gain a subsequent bonus on that roll. That's how that works. But most of the options there give you an increase on a skill level, a starting skill level. The higher numbers give you additional skill choices. Now the skills themselves, and this, excuse me, the additional skills don't get any bonus per se, other than what that you would normally get when you created the character, but you do get additional skills. So that can have an effect on the character. So, and for home regions, as I've stated before, it sort of depends on the kind of game you want to play. You can have everybody roll their own independent starting region, or you can, what I've done in some of the games I've run, is I let everybody roll, and then we kind of looked at what the options were, and then came to a consensus. Okay, we liked this particular place the best. Let's start from here. So everybody started from the same region. But it's entirely up to the game master and the party to determine this, whether it's just going to be random or you're going to have a somewhat structured existence. But the home region itself, you have the 42 CPOT from Egypt, and then there's an additional 8 outlying regions. You could come from the Sinai, you could come from Nubia, you could come from Libya. So there is some other choices there beyond just coming from Egypt, but the majority, 42 out of 50, are in Egypt itself. Now, the other aspect to take into consider is the party background. And this is essentially the reason that the party exists. And in the game, there's a chart that's got 20 different short little write-ups to give a basic idea of how the group came to be, sort of a kernel of an origin type story. And I would encourage game masters and players to look at that list, embellish it, make up your own. These were just options that I put in the game just to give you an idea of some of the choices, some of the options here. Most of these will give you some minor sort of bonus to the character. In these examples here, number 5, you can see it adds a variable number of percentage to building skill for those characters. And in this particular instance, well, obviously they have to choose the building skill in order to get that bonus. That is not a skill that's automatically given to the characters just because they rolled this particular background situation. They have to actually work in a occupation that allows a building skill. And that if they do, and they choose that as a starting skill, they would gain this additional bonus. Number 6 is an example of starting, increasing, I guess, the wealth of the characters in the party. In this case, they receive clothing and a certain amount of cloth, which does have value. We'll get more into the actual value system of the ancient Egyptian time period. I mean, they did not use coinage. The ancient Egyptians never developed coinage. They did their processes on the barter system. So a deben, as mentioned here, is a unit of weight. And there were somewhat standardized units, and most things were valued based on either a certain weight of copper, or a certain weight of silver, or a certain weight of gold, or a certain weight of grain, in most cases barley. So getting this 2 debens of cloth is actually a unit of weight, which that's approximately a kilogram of cloth that they would start with in this case. But again, these are just examples, and feel free to use them. That's how the game's set up. But I would encourage anyone to think about and how they want their party to come about, and perhaps come up with their own options here. So that's it for this session. Our next episode, we're going to get into the meat of the game, if you will. We're going to start talking about the primary attributes and how we generate the attributes and their effect on the characters, and starting skill levels and saving throws, and all those kind of nitty-gritty kind of things that make up most role-playing games. As I've stated before, the game itself is available on CoinCoreDesigns.com. And I wanted to note that anyone who orders the game, they will receive a PDF copy. So you could use that to print out character sheets, or if you want to make your own game master screens and you have ideas of which charts you want to have readily available, you can pull them from the PDF. You don't have to worry about trying to make a photocopy of the physical page out of the book. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time.